on DAB digital radio, digital TV, downloads and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
11:06. So we're asking on the show tonight, should you rent or buy your house? You're over £100 a month better off, apparently, with a mortgage than renting the average property in the UK, according to new research from the Halifax. So are you trying to get on the housing ladder? It sounds like it should be easier given those figures, but what's the reality? Really want to hear from you tonight. 0500 909 693. You can text 85058. With me is Robert Reid, an estate agent in Cheshire, and Jonathan Davis is an economist and wealth manager. Guys, you know, as Adam Kirtley said there, we could argue here about the economics of it and the money side of this for a while, but let's just look at the kind of the general factors, the more social factors, if you like. Why is it better, Robert, to buy than rent, particularly at the moment? Why isn't it better just to pay pretty much the same, or if not less than a mortgage, and possibly even live in a better area than you could probably afford to by renting?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the reason why I think it's great to buy, I think, number one, and broadening this out beyond the economics, actually looking at what's a good reason to do it. Number one, it's the flexibility to adapt a house to suit your family and suit yourself. So if you're a young couple, if you've got kids or the kids move away or whatever it might be, you know, you can change the house, you can change the layout of the rooms, you can change the kitchen, you can do this and that to suit your lifestyle, which you can't do when you're renting, because obviously it's the landlord's house.
So you're saying basically if you buy the house, it is more like a home. It is more like your home.
Yes, it is. You fundamentally have more control. If you're in a rented property, it is right and proper. If something breaks, you have to go through the agent, through the landlord to get permission to change it. Now, that's right and proper. I'm not saying it's not. But sometimes it's nice to say, actually, I'm going to put in this new door myself, or I'm going to knock this wall down between my kitchen and my dining room. So actually, it can adapt to your life quite well. I think another big thing is stability. I think, you know, at the end of the day, again, if you rent something, and I'm not anti-renting at all, but, you know, the advantage of buying it is you get stability. So you know, subject to you being able to pay your mortgage and, you know, keep yourself in the house, that you're going to be there for as long as you want, 5-10 years or whatever. Because with a rental property, again, you can be in there, you can be absolutely loving it, then your landlord decides it's time to sell it, or he wants to put the rent up significantly and you can't afford it. So suddenly you've got to move your family, you've got to move away from the school that you're settled in, or whatever it might be. So I think you have more stability when you purchase, and I think there is that sense of pride and aspiration that people have with a house.
Jonathan, I know your strongest point is the financial side of it, and it's a good point. But what else? Why is it better to rent? I mean, why isn't it better to have that sense of pride and have a house that you can really make your own, rather than the fact that you could be asked to leave in 12 months' time and you have to start all over again?
I find it remarkable that people assume that there's only pride if you have a massive debt, a mortgage. I remember not so long ago, people used to boast about how big their mortgage is. Oh. Well, I'll tell you, it's not something worth boasting about. House prices are down since 2007, the high point. Practically everywhere, apart from central London. As I say, they're down 47%.
Okay, all right. Okay, we can talk about house prices for quite some time. Let's just bring some callers in. Tony's in Wetherby. Hi, Tony.
Yeah, hi, guys.
Go on.
2 points, right. I used to live in Berlin as a soldier, then I left the army.
In Berlin, did you say?
In Berlin, yeah. And I've also lived in central Germany as a civilian on the normal civvy net, and nearly all the Germans, in fact most of the Europeans all over Northern Europe, they all rent. Very few Europeans buy, and to be honest, and that isn't changing.
Why is that? Do you think? Well,
because for Berlin, you get a lot of flats because Berlin, West Berlin, when the wall were up, used to get a lot of tower blocks and sort of 4- and 5-story buildings, for obvious reasons, and people owned them, and what you get with the sort of social housing in Berlin is you get families stay in them for 20, 30, 50, 60 years. I mean, there's families in social housing in Berlin, sort of second, third, fourth generation that moved into them when they got rebuilt post-war. So people stay in, and so one good point about renting, and I'll come back. I've got one more point to make about
Oh, so sorry. He had a couple of points to make there, and we lost him. Tony, we'll try and get you back on. Yes, Jonathan.
In fact, most of Europe has a higher owner occupation than the United Kingdom. It is not actually correct when he says that right across Europe they rent. It's a real important point. In Germany, it certainly is the case that the bulk of folk rent. The main difference between our system and much of Europe is that our assured short-hold tenancies have a maximum of 3 years, whereas they have long leases in other countries. And in Germany, they had a house price bubble. They had high ownership until reunification when they had a crash.
Right.
It's in every country on earth where you have a house price bubble, you have more people buying. Where you don't, people rent. And I'll tell you, we will change as a society as people stop making money out of property, which is happening as we speak. You will see fewer and fewer will buy, the buy-to-letters will lose their shirt, and rents and house prices will fall.
All right, Jonathan, let's speak to John in Beaconsfield, who's been waiting patiently. Hi, John.
Hi, good evening.
Are you renting or buying at the moment, John?
We bought in 2007, having rented the property for a couple of years.
Right.
And we were trying to save a deposit, but at the rate that we were saving it, the sort of deposit required was increasing far quicker than we could get a deposit together. So with help from parents at the time, we managed to buy the property we're in because I was renting from friends, and they were able to give us advance notice that they wanted to sell up and move on.
Yeah, I mean, I was exactly the same. I needed help from parents to buy my property. So without that help, are you saying you think you'd still be renting now?
Definitely. I still would be renting. I'm in the military. The house is up in North Scotland near RAF Lossiemouth. And so 4 years on, we were faced with Lossie maybe shutting, plus the economic decline. And the house is worth about 20 grand less than it was 4 years ago.
And just quickly, because I'm going to move on, but just quickly, what's been the major benefit? Has it been you've been better off, and what are those benefits of buying and renting for you?
The benefit initially was just that security that I was part of a potential market that my money might be safe in the long term. With hindsight now, from the military point of view of how frequently you move, I think renting or living in a married quarter till you know you're going to be secure is probably the way forward.
OK, John, thanks. Let's go back to Tony. Tony, we lost you earlier. You were making a couple of points there. Go on.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. What was the point you were going to make about... You're now living in the UK. What was
I'm living in the UK, and I've been here since 2000, living as like a civilian. And I own a property which I actually rent it out, and the rent on that has been quite stable. I think in a couple of years I've put it up by £20, which isn't too bad. But that's been a fairly acceptable rent. I don't quite cover my mortgage, but virtually. But can I just say, for the point of argument, the pros of owning an house, it's nice to have an house, etc., etc. But you've got to consider we're running into climate where gas is going up, electricity is going up, wages are going down. That is a certainty, and I don't want to side with your dour Scottish person, your colleague. But I mean, the gentleman in Scotland.
You didn't have to make a point that he's Scottish, Tony.
No. To be fair, he's sort of making some good points, but in like a very dour manner. But
that's very generous. Very generous.
What I would say, you've got to be careful, and people that are on a people that are struggling to just scrape through the mortgage barrier and get one, fine. You get a mortgage now, in a couple of years, gas is going to go up stupid, which it will. Electricity is going to go up.
Well, they're already going up, aren't they?
It is, but it's going to go up regular. You know it is.
Okay, all right.
Can I make one final point
very quickly, Tony.
Conclude?
Very quickly, go on.
Yeah. You've got a lot to lose. If you can just about scrape through getting a mortgage now, you've got to get it one wave, and then you go up north, and you're in debt, and all that money that you're supposedly making on buying a house is gone, and it gets given back to the bank.
Okay, Tony, that's Tony's opinion on the situation. Madeline is in Eastbourne, lovely part of the country. Hi, Madeline.
Hi.
Well, you're a landlady. So what are you renting out?
I have a flat. I bought a buy-to-let flat about 4 years ago, and I have rented it out, and I've never, ever put the rent up since I've had this property, and I've had 4 young couples in there over that time. Never had a problem renting it. Rent it on my own. I advertise it myself. And I just think if you can keep the rent stable, if you can keep the rent at a good price, you're always going to get people to rent it, and you're not ripping them off. Because I know in Eastbourne there are some rip-off landlords, big time, and the rents here, and I'm not quite sure. I was listening on the radio, and I was a little bit confused with the Scottish guy, because he maintains that rents haven't gone up. Well, he needs to come to Eastbourne to find out
I agree.
how high they are.
Well, let's just put that to Jonathan. Jonathan, you were saying the rents aren't going up. Here we've got a landlady in Eastbourne who's saying that she knows that they are, but she's trying to keep them quite stable.
No doubt, some rents have gone up, but on the whole, rents in aggregate have not increased for several years.
Not true.
It's just nonsense.
Okay.
Absolute nonsense.
All right.
Inaccurate.
Madeline, thank you very much for that. We're going to wrap up here. Final point from you, Robert. Go on.
Yeah, my final point is this. I think a lot of what we talked about here is sensible budgeting. I think it's very important that people do only commit to a rental or to a purchase if they can afford it. But the key principle, which is the good thing about this whole bubble we've been through, is that now people do need good deposits to buy a house, and I think that's very sensible. And I think there's all the emotional benefits of buying, but I do think also over a longer term, I think that's the key thing, the longer term, I do think property's a sound investment as well, and that's a good marriage of two things together.
Okay. Jonathan Davis, you mentioned earlier about the fact in Europe where they have much longer leases for rental property. Do you think we need that here rather than the 3-year maximum?
I think it would be a sensible change. I don't think it's going to happen. I think on the other point, that people take a 10-year mortgage fixed. On the one hand, you think that gives security. It'll try living in Northern Ireland where they took 10-year mortgages. Their house is now worth a half of what it was. They are in massive negative equity. It doesn't give any security whatsoever.
OK. Jonathan Davis, economist and wealth manager, thank you for joining us, and Robert Reid, estate agent in Cheshire. Just a reminder, tomorrow on 5 Live, we'll look at the state of housing in the UK with rents on the rise, first-time buyers getting older and waiting lists for a council house getting longer. How do you build a home for your family in 2011? Throughout the day, we'll be reporting on how the housing market is changing and what it means to you, starting from tomorrow morning at breakfast here on 5 Live. Some of your texts have been coming in. Rachel's been following them. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Tom in Oxford says my rent's gone up from £700 to £775 a month in 5 years, and the agent wanted to put it up more. Rich in London, worked and rented in London for 10 years, saving for a deposit. Just bought a flat, a good deal as the place needs a lot of work. However, my mortgage is half the price of a 1-bed flat in London, fixed for 3 years. Renting is incredibly expensive, not to mention a estate agent charging for everything under the sun. Rob in East London says, I've just had to move this month as my rent was set to go up by £40 a week, which is the heavy end of £2,000 a year. I couldn't actually believe it when they first told us. And this texter asks, I have a question. If owning is so bad and renting is good, who owns the rented house? Are people with property investments wrong?
Thank you very much, Rachel Hodges. You can keep those texts coming in. What's your rental or buying situation at the moment? 0500 909 693 on the phone, or if you want to text 85058. You can also tweet me at Adil Ray. Time now is 20 past 11.